Hey everyone, welcome to the weekly live dev blog over here at Metaverse Studios. I'm Mike and thank you for joining me tonight. Those of you who are new, this is a weekly show that we just do over here at Metaverse to give you an update on what things have been going on, the progress we've been making with our next project, Project Artificial Legacy, and then just kind of kick back and I just work on the game and answer any questions you guys have and just chit chat about anything you guys feel like. So, just to kick things off, last week we have been going through and continuing to just kind of add on and make the terrain um, a little more obstacle, added some more obstacles for you just to get around on. Just kind of expanding upon the current look. We've gotten the majority of we got the blue area done, green, red was kind of already done, but we're going to revisit it later. May add on to it, and currently we are working on the beige area. We decided to switch from beige to gray, which I just think it looks a lot nicer. We've been adding a lot more decay to it by removing bigger chunks of the brick. And you can see we got maybe about halfway done last week. So we're going to work on that tonight, try to finish that up. Um, After that, I've already been I mentioned last week that starting for March, we are going to pause at least during the show on continue to work on this because I feel like once we got this done, the map is going to be pretty much to the point where it's going to be it's about 80% there. The last little 20% is going to be needing to have certain elements in the back end pretty much finalized and working properly. One being the bad guys need to be working. The system for attacking and having different weapons have a different effect on items that needs to be working, and that's all stuff that's not really the most entertaining for having on during the show. So next week we are going to be switching gears and we're actually going to be doing some 3D modeling because we're going to start working on putting together some examples and demo stuff for the final two games on Project Artificial Legacy, since we already got some stuff that we had worked on earlier for the 16-bit game, but we have nothing for the 64 and 128-bit games. So we're going to be switching gears, going to do some stuff. I'm going to be reintroducing myself back to 3D animation and 3D modeling. It's been about 15 years since I last did any real 3D animation and 3D modeling, so it's going to be kind of getting back onto the bike to see how hopefully things will be pretty easy getting on there. Uh, think Trying to think of some stuff that explain for that because things will be a little different than what for most of them probably what you see most of the time for game developers. I'm currently debating on which route I'm going to take with this. Uh, I've been The big debate has been, do I want to work with the software that I'm most used to working on, which is New Tech Lightwave. It's been the software that I've used my whole entire 3D career, and so it's something I'm most familiar with. It was not a popular program to be used for doing video games. The popular was there always 3D Studio Max. I know Maya has become pretty popular in that area too. Mainly, I think if I'm not mistaken, they're both owned by the same company at this point anyway, so they're practically the same product. So I've been kind of debating, do I want to work with that, which would be a big learning curve there because Lightwave and 3D Studio Max have very, very different interfaces. They work very differently. Unreal will accept both will accept new lightweight files, so using that wouldn't be a problem. I mean, we can even export out as well with that. We can export out without. Wow, I am tongue twisting myself right now. We can export out whatever file we need for Unreal. But the question is, do we want to do it? The other option is, may I just start using Blender, which is a very popular 3D program uh, in the indie scene. So that's also an option that I'm debating on possibly using too. So these are decisions I've got to make in the next week, because we have to use one or the other. I feel like if I were to use Blender or 3D Studio Max, it's going to definitely be a lot more of me learning the software for the first time too. So that could be interesting. But nonetheless, that's what the Switch is going to be starting next week, and for all of March. So it's all going to be 3D. We might do some, probably not, but I just want to throw it out there. We might do some artwork. I'm not sure yet. We do have to design what the future evolution of our character is going to look like in the final two games. So that's going to be something that needs to be tackled. And you will get a glimpse at some of the stuff that we are planning down the road for this project that we've kind of been keeping a little bit quiet and more to our chest on, because we will be doing these 3D models. So you'll get to learn a little bit of new stuff in that. But yeah, so that's going to be the big thing for next week. Just because at this point, everything is pretty much working on stuff like this. This is what I've been working on recently, trying to get the enemy character working correctly so that he is moving like an NES character, and moving and acting like an NES character, and not like a more sophisticated, maybe like 16-bit error type character. And I'm getting close. I actually had it working properly, and I ran into a bug where the respawn wasn't working correctly. And I've been trying to mess with getting that back up and running, and now I seem to have broken part of it again. So I've got to figure out what did I change that broke it. So right now the way it's set up is that he's got two options, and I can toggle between the two with just clicking here. When it's checked, when the character gets near, he'll actually walk to you, which is a type of enemy that is in some NES games. It is wasn't a big one used a lot. I know games like Ninja Turtles and Ninja Gaiden had enemies like that. Even Double Dragon, I think Double Dragon also had it. But with the era we're working with, those games didn't really exist a lot. We didn't have a lot of enemies going towards you, or say, "Hey, you're in my little box area. I'm going to start walking towards you." We didn't really have a lot of that, so I've got to balance this out. I got to make sure I'm not doing something that isn't isn't available during this time frame that we're working on. So that's why while I had developed it initially that way, I needed to deactivate it and go with more of an enemy that just kind of walks back and forth between 2 points. And then when you get within its box, it will uh, it will start shooting at you, or we'll just have it so that within it just is, when it's walking in this area, it's just attacking constantly. So I mean, this is stuff that I've got to figure out, make sure I'm not doing anything I shouldn't be doing, which is required me to do a lot more research recently. I've actually had to boot up the NES, start playing a bunch of old NES games, and trying to figure out what can and can't be done. I've been taking notes, trying to figure out what, looking at how enemies were handled. I know Ninja Turtles is kind of out of that range, but that was one I recently just fired up to kind of look at. Also, kind of as an example, like, okay, at this point, what is still being done, and because it could also indicate a limitation to the NES itself. And this is how I know that both Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Turtles had characters that when you're within a proximity of it will turn around and actually start attacking you. The foot soldiers did that with the Ninja Turtles, but I did notice that things like the Mousers, and they also had rats and mosquitoes, did just move back and forth within a certain area, and um, that way, and you pretty much you were trying to avoid being in their path. So I think we're going to have to kind of look at some of the enemies we have and realize that some of these guys have got to act this way specifically. But we will also be looking at, okay, can we actually still have these characters that kind of go towards you, or is that something we got to completely scrap? Um, Hoping it's not something we got to completely scrap, because a lot of these characters are kind of designed with that mindset that they do move towards you. So all fun things we gotta do. It just means you gotta do some more additional research. I'm hoping that it's not gonna be an issue, but we'll see. Worst case, we'll just have these guys shooting that just kind of walk back and forth, and maybe like just, oh, if it's facing you, it shoots. If it's not facing, it'll stop and shoot or something. I don't know. We gotta figure it out. Gotta figure out what. It's a huge thing, and it's kind of, it sucks that it was an issue, but I've decided to, worst case scenario, if it's something that these characters got to work, go between 2 points, at least program them in here, and then I can just, if I have to deactivate something else, I'll deactivate it. But I know there were enemies that would attack you based on would attack, so I just got to figure out at what point were these games existing. In the arcades, they existed. They've existed for quite some time. The problem is did they exist in the NES? But yeah, so that's what I've been working on a lot. Still got to work on weaponry. The weapon system is still not fully working, but we're getting there. We're getting close. But because a lot more stuff's going to be behind this, in the background, and not making good entertainment value, I'm going to be doing that off the air during the week, and well, actually during the weekend, just when I'm not broadcasting, and we're going to be focusing on doing some 3D stuff. I mean, it's something I've been wanting to do for a while, so that's what we're going to start doing. So with that, we are going to now switch gears, and we're going to start back in and keep working on the lower map. Another thing that I'm actually starting to play around with is also doing some wow, brain fart. I'm working on making some more obstacle things, like trying to think of some examples, like just like electrical fields that will like turn on and off, because I feel that's gonna be something that's kind of a trope that was pretty popular in NES games, something like that. Maybe put like a fireball or something. I know we were talking about doing something simple, like with like this spot here, to be like electrical beam that you gotta deactivate, but if you hit it, you would take damage. So I gotta implement something like that into here. But yeah, so we still got quite a bit we gotta work on. But yeah, lots of back behind the scenes stuff. Hopefully, come April, we'll be going back in here, and we'll actually be placing enemies, placing traps, placing just things that will make amp up the difficulty in the game. Probably implementing coin or something that the point system items. Start adding all these elements into the game. So hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, we will have a working beta of the game and start doing public testing on it. Get ready to actually launch it. Excuse me. It's been a long day. But yeah, so yeah, the overall goal for this year is to actually have this game done this year, and move on to the next, this 16-bit game, and from there we'll have built some assets for the 2 3D games, which will definitely be much bigger projects, and I'm expecting Um, 2025 we'll be getting into those. Maybe 2026 will be the 3D games. I mean, this is a long-term project, a long-term game. So, I mean, it is literally 4 games that we're developing, and we're trying to get them out, released in a pretty quick format. I mean, we don't want to be releasing the game, people playing it, and then forgetting about it completely. And we can't also create a game series where it's like you buy it for $50, and then for the next 6 years we're producing content for free because it's supposed to be a a full game. So we got to figure out this pricing system, how we're going to be releasing the game. Um, I mean, I feel like once we have a lot of the assets built, it should come together pretty quickly. Um, I mean, we still don't even know what format we're going to be doing for the 3D games. I mean, is it going to be um, like first person shooter, third person shooter? Is it going to be an action adventure game? What? I mean, is it going to be a platformer? We don't know. We haven't thought down that road because a lot of games went from switched genres once they went 3D. Uh, you look at things like Metroid went from being a side-scrolling platformer to a first-person shooter. Um, Ninja Gaiden was a side-scrolling adventure game, and is now a third-person action adventure game. Um, not much of a jump there. I think Mario also went from side-scrolling to 3D. I mean, there's still platforming. It's still once you I guess Ninja Gaiden kind of changed a little bit more. It's a hack and it's yeah, it's a hack and slash type game, but nonetheless, it's like we got to figure out how we going to shift from 2D to 3D in those games, and that takes a lot more thinking. Um, we have been leaning heavily towards third person, um, like action adventure game for the 3D. The question is what do we do for it? I mean, what examples do we have to look at for like, oh, how do we bring this character over into this age? And we got to see what was out at the time. I mean, this is something big that I've been doing right now, and I'm definitely talking a lot more and kind of give you guys some stuff that has been going on behind the scenes a lot right now. I'm already thinking about how we going to be designing the character for the 64-bit version, and thinking about um, what pop culture stuff would have influenced me, and uh, what um, what stuff was out at the time that I would have been using as kind of like reference materials. Like, okay, like the game was out, what was out at the same time, um, and it's interesting, like what I'm really kind of limited to. Um, Given the era that we're in, it's like things like Tomb Raider didn't even exist yet, so I can't even like when we go to the 128-bit version, yeah, I can say, oh yeah, Tomb Raider influence, but for 64-bit didn't even exist yet, and so things like that are like kind of crazy. I know one big thing that will definitely be influencing um, the final 2 games will definitely be Cyberpunk. Um, Definitely the Ghost in the Shell, Bubblegum Crisis type genre. 2 reasons for that is, well, one is that these were popular. These were around during the when our 3D generation is going to be. They were out. They existed. Another thing, I mean, the big factor is the fact that these are things that I was hugely into and still am. But the cyberpunk genre was huge for me growing up. I loved both Ghost in the Shell and Bubblegum Crisis. Um, 2 of my all-time favorite anime, well, 2 of my all-time favorite series, period. So using them as kind of a base. It's like, okay, I want to do this, but I want to take the cyberpunk elements and merge them into the fantasy elements. So it's going to be an interesting combo there. But I definitely think I'm looking at, um, well, I'm kind of trying to design how I want our hero to have evolved and look when we get to the 3D era. I'm kind of looking at like, okay, well, let's see. Um, I really like the design of the heroes in Bubblegum Crisis. I like the hard suit design. Um, you know what would be helpful right now? Let's see. I'm talking about this stuff, but I'm not even showing you guys this stuff. Hold on. So, here we go. I hope there's nothing inappropriate. But yeah, see, like this. Expand these a bit. So well, this one not, but the characters design stayed pretty much the same as the human characters. But the anime design of these characters definitely influential. The hard suits, the armor they wear is something I definitely want to kind of. I want to use something similar to it. So I mean, these characters are huge in influencing my style. Um, Ghost in the Shell, this version here, not this version. This was another influential one, and its design also is going to be something that I probably will reference. And I mean, definitely the cityscapes, probably more like the art style like this. Um, I mean, one thing I have played around with the idea is that she'll leave the more hometown, suburb world in the first two games and enter more of a city world for the third and fourth game, just because it'll add so much more. And even growing up, I mean, personally, I went from being in a small town, small suburb, not even suburb, like small rural area, went to a town, and if I had the choice, I'd have moved to a city by now because I love the city. Um, any chance I get, that's where I vacation is. I go to cities. I love being in cities. Uh, so these are all things that will affect personal, like my personal experiences, my personal likes and stuff will all really influence the characters, the designs, and all that stuff. So we're going to be seeing a definitely an evolution of the character across the three games as more and more things that were influential to me get to start being more and more adapted in. Um, Another possible element for the 3D game would be Super Sentai, Power Rangers, pretty much, because that was something that I got into at that point. I got huge into Power Rangers growing up at that point. Still pretty big into Power Rangers, honestly, but I'm also big into Super Sentai, and I know um, before Power Rangers came out, some of the Super Sentai did get brought over to the U.S. dubbed, and I actually did watch this stuff before, not even knowing that it was connected to Power Rangers. I had watched don't even remember what it was called. It was a spoof. It was spoofing the actual thing. The dubbed audio was uh, comical, but I remember seeing it at a comic book convention and loved it. And I think that was probably it was very like it reminded me a lot of Godzilla, and I was huge into Godzilla, which is again another thing that will probably like I don't know how we would tie that into here, but it'd be nice to find. I know Godzilla is something that like I would think I'd be able to find something to incorporate more monsters. I mean, the looks maybe might be something that might get incorporated eventually, but as I said, this is all stuff that what I was into and what I'm still into will have a lasting impact on how these characters look. I just got to make sure that I'm utilizing stuff from the Pacific eras. But like the gameplay itself, it's going to be an interesting one because there was only so much stuff video game wise that you could pull from. Um, we had things like Doom was popular. Um, I was a Mac person, so Marathon was a huge game for me, which was one of Bungie's first games. Um, it was like Marathon, Pathways into Darkness, um, Minotaur. I think was that one of theirs. I say yes. I can't be. I might be wrong, but I was huge into Bungie's games since Pathways into Darkness and Marathon. So that's one reason we're kind of leaning a little bit towards possibly doing a first person shooter for the third game. Possibly. We are definitely going to be opening it up to the public to figure out which way they want this game go. So, I mean, we could see this game taking a very Metroid type approach where it went from a 2D side scroller to a 3D first person shooter. Possibly. Possibly. It's just one of those things where this would have been something that would have influenced us at the time. We would have looked at hey, we're making our next game in 3D. Where do we want to go? And we could have been like, hey, you know what? We really like first person shooters. Why not try to bring our game into that genre? And that could have been a choice that we would have made. But we got to weigh the pros and cons of why we would have done that. There's also the possibility we would have seen something like Mario 64 for the first time, be like, wow, or we can do that. And that's another thing we got to look at. We got to look at what was being demoed to the audiences at the time for developing 3D games. I mean, Sony in particular, it's like I know they were getting into like the big push with the PlayStation was the games all had to be 3D. Hence why we got things like Mega Man Legacy. I don't remember the name, but I know that was the big push for all the 3D games was that Sony wanted strictly 3D games, and so we need to look at what was being demoed, what was being used as like the push to go 3D, and just kind of look at what people were doing. But again, we have a small window we can use for examples because we would have been told, oh yeah, Ultra 64 is coming, and PlayStation coming, Saturn coming. Start developing your 3D games, and we would have had to have figured out like things would have had to have influenced us before then, or we would have had to invent something. And trying to invent something at this point would be a little harder because at this point we've had so much experience with 3D. I don't know how we would have created something new. So we're relying a little bit more heavily on what would have influenced us because we can't plop ourselves in and say, okay, we're going to invent a new genre, we're going to invent a new style of gameplay that didn't exist yet. Well, we can't because we are influenced by stuff and we can't just kind of disconnect ourselves. So stuff influencing us is the huge thing. But anyway, oh wow, I've been rambling on for a while. So anyway, so let's dive in. Let's start working on stuff and see what we can get done tonight. But yeah, so next week will be interesting, and I'll be diving more into kind of like just using examples of what's influencing designs. I've got to create at least we got to at least create a basic character model for our hero. So that's gonna be a big thing. I've got to actually sit down and kind of design a rough sketch on what we want her to look like, so that we can bring her, we can start at least making the base model for her and then kind of expanding on it. And we'll probably be doing it. I mean, I would love to be doing drawing artwork for this, but I don't have a setup for that at the time. So we're probably just doing 3D modeling on the fly, kind of like looking at examples of characters, our own character, and kind of evolving her and designing her the best we can. So, anyway, let's enough chit chatting. Let's switch over and get it working. Okay. Ooh. So we left off down here. Not actually eliminate a lot of blocks in this section. So let's go in here and eliminate some, because as the lower we get, the more stuff should be missing, honestly. Let's switch notification. Okay. Let's save. What else we want to do? How many other bricks? Yeah, looks good. Oh, next section. We're changing the background color on this now. Da, da, da. Sorry, just opening up some stuff on top. Check out something. Sorry. wife knows I'm doing a show, but she still likes to message me funny things. So okay. Now I'm just bringing up some notes I've done on the game over the course of many years, and just help give me some speaking points. I always like to talk with you guys, but I don't usually have stuff to talk about. So, and since I've been talking about like what's been influencing the game, especially when we come, oops, I want that. Especially since we're coming up with stuff we'll be doing next week. I mean, we gotta like continue to talk about that a little bit. It's actually pretty kind of cool. Kind of kill some time while we're working on this tonight. So anyway, yeah, I mean, while I've been working, like when we were designing this character and the game itself, I mean, we had certain restrictions on the time frame. 1987 was cut off for things to influence us, for things that would inspire us for our character and the environment. So I mean, we had certain games that because we gave the cutoff point for that because this way, um, like when you're designing stuff, you can like last minute be like, oh, you know what? Can we make this change? The character would definitely benefit from having this change. Can we do this? And you can go in and make some modifications, especially when like design the character. As long as she continued to fit into the right form factor, we could do that change. I mean, and I remember things like I remember hearing stories like, and this honestly shouldn't really influence us that much, but this is a story I remember hearing about with Kirby and how the design was a placeholder. Kirby's design was purely a placeholder, and that they just liked the character so much after using it as a placeholder for so long that they just kept it. And I mean, a similar thing could be said for this. Is sorry. So I mean, if we decide to make changes to the character and like say, oh wow, this thing really inspired me. Can we go through and make modifications? Because we really liked how this looked. We could, and that's why we said this would be the kind of cutoff date. After this, no, nothing else can inspire us. Even though the game comes out for, I think we said 1987. Was it 1987 or 1988? Was when the game would be released. So, I mean, that's where we make these decisions. And so, things like, we moved it up to 1987. That way, we could do things like Zelda could inspire us, Metroid could inspire us for gameplay stuff. Trying to think of, I think the original NES Goonies game was something that could inspire us, even though that was something that was exclusive to Japan. Um, we weren't excluding things that we wouldn't. I mean, the import scene was different back in the 80s, even 90s, Super Nintendo era. It was still very different. I mean, but it existed. It just wasn't the same extent it is today. And so we were going through and like, okay, well, Metroid Zelda, we still had that ability, but like things like the Goonies video game would be something that's like, the average person probably wouldn't have gotten it. I mean, there's all this wondering, like, why is it called Goonies 2? Where's the first one? Well, this way we would have known, like, oh, well, there is an NES version here, so we've played it. Not sure if the arcade version ever made it to the US. That'd be something interesting to find out, because if it did, technically that could also, we could have classified that as an inspiration. It would be the NES version. But anyway, so we looked at, I mean, a few games would have inspired us, and the one that would definitely have inspired us a lot would have been Metroid and how that played. Um, I mean, Metroid probably had the biggest impact on me as a gamer growing up, so that's why we use Metroid as kind of a good example of games that influenced us for this game. But so, I mean, other media that would have inspired the character. I mean, Samus is also a reason why we're using a female character in this. I mean, there were other reasons for it too. I mean, we wanted to have a female hero for our game. I wanted to do it partially for my daughter because I want her to. I don't know, like it's kind of a throw for her. Not throwback. Um, it's kind of a thing for her. I wanted to create a female character that she could not really look up to, but it's just kind of like, hey, look, here's another female hero. So like, I did it for her, and I also did it for like other girls. It's like there needs to be more female hero characters, and it's not the ones that a lot of the ones that are currently out there. I mean, there are some good ones out there, but there are also some that are just kind of like, it's just like, oh, yeah, these are what we let our little girls, our kids play with. It's like, yeah, they're the best examples, sarcastically. But I wanted to create one that was going to be like a good character. And I mean, I think about my daughter and what I would want her to see as a good character. So when I'm working with her, this is why I'm going. This is why I design her. I want to design her with my daughter in mind. So, but yeah, so thinking of other like media that was going to be around at the time that could inspire us. I mean, um, Dungeons and Dragons was around, so that was something that was inspirational for us. Um, Played a lot of D&D growing up, so that's definitely something that had an impact. That's one reason why we wanted kind of a fantasy-esque world, but also I was into sci-fi. I mean, I was fantasy, sci-fi. I was into everything. Um, One reason we went with the underground type route for this was Ninja Turtles was around at this point. Not the cartoon, not the fun pizza eating version of the Turtles, but the black and white, kick your ass. I don't mind cutting off somebody's head type Turtles. So it they are part of the inspiration for some stuff in this game. Uh, we're not going heavily violent in this, but um, like our main villain for this is loosely based off of um, Triceratons. Um, Probably see a little bit of the Mousers in some of the character in the little walking guys. I mean, these are things that did have an impact, and these were things that were acceptable to have impact on because they existed in this time during our time group era. I mean, people don't realize Ninja Turtles has been around for a very long time. A lot of people don't realize about the black and white comic. All they think is a silly cartoon. And I grew up with the black and white comic, and so it had a huge impact on me, and I'm using that. Um, let's see, like I mean, there's a lot of dark and gritty stuff, and our game is definitely not dark and gritty. But I mean, we had like what, like Dark Knight Returns came out. Uh, I mean, Aliens had gave us, it was something, had some impact on me. So I mean, the alien creature was something that I would like to try to, that sneaking in the dark thing. I mean, definitely had some impact. Um, the, the Ridley character. I mean, there's not a strong female character that I would like to incorporate. I want to have that strong female character. Um, Gremlins would have had an impact on some of the probably some of the character designs. Uh, I I mean, just trying to list off things that were around. So we had like um, He-Man, Voltron. I mean, those things had some impact, not a lot. I mean, these are things I can use for at least looking at. It's like I can look at the characters, say, okay, these are what these characters looked at like at the time. Could we take some of these design elements and use it to have inspired some of these character designs? Um, let's see. I mean, Star Wars trilogy was out already. Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Goonies. I mean, they were out. I don't know how what I would pull from any of those. I mean, if you kind of think about it, I mean, her weapon, you could say, was partially inspired maybe by the proton packs from Ghostbusters. Using it as an example, I mean that's you have a weapon that shoots. I mean, one of the things could wind up being a beam type thing. I mean, I'm just using this as an example. Ghostbusters really didn't uh, impact the design that much, but I mean, I could possibly draw connections to that there. What else? But yeah, Gremlins, uh, Star Trek, original Star Trek up to Star Trek 4 was out at the time. So time travel, I guess. Back to the Future, Star Trek 4, time travel. We're not doing anything time travel here, but I mean, those, if we wanted to do something time travel, we had some inspiration right there. But yeah, so I mean, these were things, we had plenty of comic books: Batman, Superman, Green Arrow, Green Lantern. I mean that's just DC. I mean, I wasn't big into Marvel at this point, so I don't have Marvel as a huge inspiration. I mean, I knew Marvel existed. I knew the X-Men existed. I mean, I know my uncle tried to get me into like New Mutants because hey, I like Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So maybe I like the New Mutants or X-Men, but I just never got into them. It wasn't until many years later that I got into those series. But I mean, if we wanted to, I mean, those were things right there that we could use as some influence, maybe. But yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff that we could go through and just say, hey, we're going to use this to inspire us. But we're also very limited. But, but yeah, so I mean, as it goes, it's like then when we get into the next generation with the Super Nintendo, and, Sega Genesis. I mean, all of a sudden now we have the whole entire NES library we can use as referencing. It's like what worked, what were popular games back in the NES generation? What could we, uh, what things here would influence us for the game? And we could use stuff like that. I'm just trying to see if there's anything here I want to change. Right now, we're going through a lot of areas where it's just kind of like we're eliminating this background because there's really not a whole lot I want to change because it's very compact areas to begin with. So it's not kind of was already designed. Here, right here, this area is here. We'll probably want just some redesigns, but I'm not distracted talking, and that's why I'm not doing a lot of changes. It's just there's not a lot of stuff here that needs to be changed. But anyway, so once we get into the Super Nintendo era, it's like the whole entire NES library. So not only do we have now Metroid and original Legend of Zelda, we now got Zelda 2, Adventures of Link. We've got the Ninja Turtle games. We now see like, oh look, what we can do with the NES. We can do like Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. Look, we can do that as an NES game, so we can definitely do that as a Super Nintendo game. Bucky O'Hare is another game that was trying to remember games like I goes into the Mega Man series. I mean, we had all those at that point. Kirby, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario Bros. 2. At this point, too, we are also learning new tech. We figured out ways, and one of the biggest hurdles we have with this game is, and we're trying to figure out how to handle this still, because we need to try to figure out some way to get the camera to kind of like shift down to the next screen and shift over. It's not a great aesthetic, but it's what was done at these games at the time. It wasn't until later on, especially with Super Mario Bros. 3, Kirby, Super Mario Bros. 2, they were able to do all directions. But in our time window, it was not an option. So we got to figure out ways to work around that. And one thing is when you're in certain areas, it will go and we got to incorporate that. We may find ways to block off areas and all these fun things that we got to figure out still. Ooh, excuse me. Well, when we get into the 16-bit era of Super Nintendo Genesis, all that stuff is like, well, we can do all this stuff now. Up, down, left, right, diagonally, it's all possible at this point now. Okay, I gotta remember that right here needs to go off on two sections. What else? So go from there. But yeah, so when we hit Super Nintendo, the time frame we have, so A Link to the Past will have been out, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World. Um, so those are all games that will have an impact on us. Uh, Batman '89 would have come out, so Michael Keaton Batman would definitely have some impact. That darker tone would have an impact on us. It's popular, that tone. So you could see that probably, maybe, possibly, our next game might have a darker look to it. Maybe we'll have it set at nighttime or something to do that. But that's a possibility right there. I mentioned things like Bubblegum Crisis having a huge impact on me at that point. And I believe I mentioned Ghost in the Shell. I'm trying to remember if that one was. Ghost in the Shell manga was 1989, so I would have definitely been reading that. I'm not sure if it was out at the time. The movie was 95, so technically the movie would not have had an impact on this game, but would have an impact on the N64 PlayStation 1 game. So, I mean, these are things. I mean, the art style. I was growing up. I was big into anime and manga, so we're going to see that art style probably seep into some of the character designs. Um, let's see. Terminator 2 was huge. That was going to definitely probably be something that would be having an impact in the Super Nintendo game. Um, let's see. The Disney Renaissance had just started, so maybe some of the Disney aesthetics might seep in along with anime, so you might see a merge of those. Um, we were in the middle of a major war during Super Nintendo era, especially that 1991's when the game was the cutoff point. So we had just been in the Iraq War, so that could have an impact. We might have some type of, I don't know how. I'm just saying these are things that could have an impact. Um, Indiana Jones trilogy had wrapped, so maybe the whole quest for some type of artifact could play as a point in the next game. Maybe. So, I mean, there's that. I need to line this up now because I have these sections here that I blacked out. I have to keep view down. Whoa, what did you do that for? So I mean that just brings it up to the Super Nintendo era of things. I mean the next step would when we hit the N64, we're leaning towards 1996 for its release. It's definitely a little later into the N64 life. Um, the N64. No, the N64 was released in 96. Wow, it was 96 and then 99 was the Dreamcast in 2000. Oh, so really only out for that? That's crazy. But so I guess we're aiming towards our first year release. Really? Wow. Would not have thought we would be doing that, but I guess we decided to be a first. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. N60. So first year, maybe second year release for the N64. Um, so at this point, uh, Super Metroid would be on the table. Um, Ghost in Shell anime, Marathon Trilogy, Doom, Power Rangers, Jurassic Park. Uh, just, I mean, those are just a few things that I can rattle off the top of my head that could be having an impact at this point in the game. Even music, I actually made notes on this, was um, at this point, uh, growing up beforehand, music really didn't have much of an impact. I mean, I was mostly listening to what my parents were listening to, so it was a lot of oldies music. Was what I was listening to, like Moody Blues, Buddy Holly, um, lots of stuff that was just on the oldies station on the radio. So I mean, that was my introduction to music for most of that time. So Not a whole lot. I mean, I've been listening to well, the designing side, I've been listening to a lot of '80s music, so like a lot of Madonna, um, what, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Elton John. Wow, let's see. I can't really think. I just put the '80s on. I like this was only ours. Like Devo, um, Twisted Sister. I'm just trying to think of some of the things I was listening. I've been listening to. I've been, but like I kind of like look for stuff that during that era just to kind of influence. So when I go, we eventually get to the music tone for this game, we can kind of figure that out. But I made notes for this um, N64 game that Green Day had debuted at this point. So this was something that I got it into. I was into that style of music growing up. Well, so were a lot of people. So that's gonna be something that will have like it maybe have an influence. Is again we're looking at something where we may have continued down like a. I mean, we're definitely at this point probably embracing a lot more of that cyberpunk feel, and so I mean, but I mean, based on the era we're looking at of when we want this game released, definitely would not have had a lot of influence by actual N64 or PlayStation 1 video games. It would have been probably more the PC front that would have influenced us a lot more when it comes to 3D. And at this point, it's Marathon and Doom and the original, the first System Shock game, to name a few. So yeah, going to be this one's going to be a little bit more interesting to see where we go when it comes to what's going to have the impact for 3D. But like then after that, I mean, things get as things go. I mean, when we hit the next generation of the final game, which will be GameCube, Xbox, PS2, one of those, whichever one we decide to go to. I mean, at this point, we've got Tomb Raider's been out, Thief has been out, DSX has been out, Unreal, Quake, Perfect Dark, Men in Black, the Star Wars prequels are hitting. Uh, the Matrix has been released. Just, I mean, that's just like television wise. Batman the animated series, uh, X Men the animated series, all these things that are now out. These are all having big influence probably on the tone of what the final game will be. So it's gonna be interesting. I mean, technically, even Halo at this point, Halo is probably actually Halo would have been influential because when it was still being developed for the Macintosh, we had seen it. And being the huge Bungie fans we were at the time before Bungie was bought by Microsoft, I was obsessed with what was Halo. This Halo thing coming out was so intrigued. I remember watching stuff from Mac Expo when they showed off the first trailer for Halo. Halo's demo footage of Halo in this big open world, 3D open world game. And it was also third person, I believe. So I mean, again, influential. So be interested to see when we can look at stuff like that and say, okay, well, this is going to have an impact. This was big. So, but yeah, it's lots of things like this. I mean, and when it comes to designing the character, I mean, oh, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 5, 7, yeah, 7, 8, and 9 have all been released at this point for um, PlayStation. So this was having this effect on the final game. Final Fantasy 2 and 3 or 4 and 6 would have had an impact on the N64 game. Though going down the RPG route, probably not going to happen. But, I mean, I know some of the designs from Final Fantasy 6 had, I mean, the big giant mechs. I mean, that had an influence that influenced me. And if we're already kind of playing off that idea of Bubblegum Crisis could have had an impact on some stuff. Um, we could see something with, I don't know, maybe with giant mechs showing up in one of the games. So all things to be looking forward to. It's gonna be fun the further along we get in this game. Uh When was that released? Sorry, I'm looking up something because this was something. Okay, so um, oh yeah, okay. So I completely forgot about this one, and this would be influential for the um, like I was talking about, like yeah, okay. So something else that would have been influential for the Super Nintendo game, Akira had come out. That was a huge deal. So again, that cyberpunk thing is really probably going to be digging its hands in. So we're dealing with a very probably a big merge on science fiction and fantasy into this world. And I mean, as we go on, we might see certain elements of fantasy will continue throughout this series, but we could see it slowly kind of evolving in more into science fiction as we go, especially the cyberpunk genre. But a game that will probably could have influences on the final game, and this was because it was a huge deal to us, um, being Bungie fans. I remember drooling over this as information was coming out, and this was like the early days of the internet, so the information was more widely available, and you're able to find screenshots all the time and check it out. Stuff was on me. That one was a huge deal for me. I loved that game. I mean, the game wasn't amazing, which was a disappointment, but I absolutely loved that game. And I was hung up on every little bit coming out on that. Anytime something new showed up, I remember having it as my wallpaper. Even this is before the game was even released. I just went crazy for it. And just like seeing like the hand to hand combat stuff in the third person view. I mean, as I said, I mean, at this point in the final game, I mean, Tomb Raider had already been released. That was being influential. And like first person shooters was huge. So, I mean, all this stuff is coming together. So we could see the final game being a third person action adventure game type thing. So we could see us jumping around, maybe possibly to different genres with the last two games, just trying to find that fit. But I mean, these are things that we're also going to be talking with you guys, and we're going to be laying out what we're thinking and try to get your feedback on what you guys would like to see. So, well, I'm just giving you the idea, and I mean, nonetheless, I mean, even if we go first person, I think it's going to be important to have a full 3D model for our character. And as I said, we may or may not go the first person route for the game. It's just a possibility. So I decided, like, I just want this area to go black. Kind of partially freak people out, thinking, because usually when something starts to go all black like this, it's indicating a boss, and I kind of just want to give that freak out. And I'm just taking a slight break, and I just want to not break. I just want to keep going. I got an idea for this. So, oops, what I want. But yeah, so we got lots of ideas coming up for this for the game. Um, we'll definitely be sharing all this stuff with you guys more and more as we get closer to things. Your feedback is going to be very important because it'll help guide us to where we want to go with this. And we're going to look at what the impact on what other stuff helped with other things that kind of directed the creators of stuff to where they went. I mean, just the idea of sticking with N64 and going to PlayStation is going to be a huge deal. And seeing what other developers went through, why they made the choices they did. And this is all going to be stuff that's going to be important. So this should be a fun adventure, fun project going through. Maybe maybe a nice little history lesson and stuff too. Kind of going through the whole process of being a game developer, at least in the designing phase. I mean, we're definitely using more modern technology, but we're putting these limitations on ourselves so these things have to act and feel like they're from the old times. And I would like to see possibly releasing at least the NES game. I feel like they would be feasible to. It shouldn't be impossible to release this one, probably. So I'm just. Shoot. I messed up. Oops. Do, do, do. But I am definitely looking forward to going through this journey with all of you. But yeah, if we have time, I would definitely like to see the at least the NES version released as an actual physical cartridge. We put a lot of time trying to figure out how to do it, and I think it'd be cool. There. So we got that moving platform that gets right up there. So it's gonna have a lot of enemies through here. I think this area is gonna be like people are like, oh crap, there's bats coming in. I'm not gonna go down that way. You know, this just bypasses everything. Probably be like loaded with coins or something. Well, I finished that one off. Though it was partially finished off to begin with, so. But yeah, so the way I think our timeline currently is set up. Okay, this area definitely needs to get some love. because this section here is I'm gonna break this area up quite a bit. Oops, I didn't want to do that. So give me a second. I'm gonna paint some stuff in first. Now I was gonna talk, but yeah, sometimes I gotta stop for a second so I can just make sure I do something right. You know what? I'm just gonna. There we go. Oops. Okay, so there we got. More along the lines, just like go in there, click something, drop down. So at this point, I'm definitely going in and adding more stuff. Oi, 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 oi. Need to move some stuff around. Space heater need to come up. Let's just save all. I don't want to make sure we don't lose anything. We got this big empty space here. It really doesn't serve much purpose when we have it so open up. So let's add some stuff here. So so some interesting things that I'm just gonna mention now because you guys will find out about it soon enough. Um, some fun elements with the character is that we're gonna have her age in real time. So with the first game, we figured she's like a 7-year old. Kind of young, yeah, but it's a kid's game. Well, not really a kid's game. The idea is like kind of the first game is like aimed towards kids. It's like, oh yeah, I mean it's gonna be we're gonna make it hard. I mean games back then they were hard. We liked them hard because you spent $60 on a game, which is like almost $100 nowadays, and that game better have lasted you a while. But the first game is gonna, I mean, yeah, she's gonna be a 7-year-old kid on a quest to rescue her dad. That's gonna be the major story for that game. After that, um, yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to pay attention here for a second. Sorry. The second game, as I said, we're going to age her real time. So in the second game, she's going to be 12 because it'll take place in 1991. So we've had 6 years past. No, she'll be 13. Wait, no. First game gets released in 1988. She's 7 years old. Next game after is 1993. Is going to be release date. She'll be 12-year-old. I just found our release schedule. Ha! Excellent. Okay, this makes a lot more sense with release schedule. Okay, the cutoff dates was what I had before, I think. Or at least things, I don't know. But, so, 1993, she's going to be 12-year-old. Then the following game, N64 PlayStation, it'll be released in 1998. And so, a year before the Dreamcast gets released. But she'll be 17-year-old. Then with the GameCube, PlayStation 2, or Xbox game, we don't know which one yet. It'll be released in 2003, and she'll be 22 at that point. So this is gonna be. We're gonna have when we're designing the character. We're designing a teenager for the 3D version. Designing a teenager, pretty much. So I mean, I guess this N64 version is technically a teenager too, but we're gonna keep it a little more cartoony, kind of like she's a tween, so not yet a teenager. But so N64, she's a teenager, and then in GameCube, she's a young adult. So these are how we're gonna have to design the character. She needs to have that age look to each one, and which is nice. Also, it kind of I feel a little less. I mean, we were talking about how the games are going to get a little darker. Also, like with her moving like into more of a city environment, this now explains that. So I get this just having the age thing because I didn't want the kid. I think this would be kind of a cool idea. I don't think any game has really done that. At least nothing comes to mind. I mean, name a game where the character ages with the series. I mean, Mario has been whatever age he is forever. I mean, I guess you could argue Link has aged because it's always technically a different Link in every game. But like, Samus is still the same age as she was in the first game. I mean, not much time has passed between those games. I honestly can't think of any game where the hero's aged. They've always stayed the same age. So this was something I thought this was a plan very early on in the game series when we were developing it. I really loved this idea of a character who aged with the audience. So when you started playing this game as a kid, I mean, I started playing video games when I was 7. So, like, actually, the ages are close to what my age is each time, I think. Yeah. Yeah, pretty close. But anyway, so the idea is just like this character ages with you. But yeah, this is a fun idea we had and something I liked. So I hope you guys like it too. I mean, as I said, this was something I really figured like, yeah, I need to tell you guys because you're gonna find out when we start designing a character who looks older than our NES one. You're gonna raise some flags. So there we go. And we're also looking at possibly evolving her weapon too along the lines too. I mean, in this game, it's a big gun. As she gets older, I mean, it's gonna look smaller in her hand. So, and it's like as always, like technology advances too. So most likely this advances. It also allows us kind to evolve her as a character. Like, what choices has like being this hero in the games in the first game, how did that impact her? Like, what choices did she make later on in life that how would it have affected her? And as we go, it's like then it's like the next game. It's like okay, it's like maybe the first game didn't really affect her, but how about the next? It's like is she would have been like, oh my goodness, why does this keep happening to me? Or would she be like, I'm embracing this. I am a hero. I'm going to continue to be a hero. And we got things like one thing we still got to figure out is like how do we deal with the villain? Is the villain the same villain throughout all the games? If so, how is the villain reacting to this one person always interfering with their plans and keeping some stuff? I mean, we have some plan. We've got some aspects of the game planned out. Because we've thought about these things. We wanted when we were writing um, the Bible for this game. Had we had to think things out because this the long period was a huge selling feature for us on this project, and so we had to answer these questions early on. But yeah, so like as I said when I mentioned this, how like we had the darker media, we had more of like you had Batman, you had the Dark Knight Rising. I mean, the Dark Knight Strikes Again, not Rising. Things were coming out that were definitely influential, and these things have an impact on how our stories are going to be told. Now, just because something's influential and has an impact on how we write, I mean, doesn't mean that it's not going to be original. Far from it. If anything, all it did was put limitations on what our storytelling by saying, okay, we can't do this, we can't do that. We can still do all this. Because I mean, things influence people. is why you get things where it's like you have multiple stories coming out all near the same time about a boy wizard going to magic school. It wasn't just that people were out there trying to copy Harry Potter. No, we had things influence these writers, and all these writers had at the same time this idea of doing a similar story. Um, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you look at it, it'll be like all these writers probably, when coming up with the ideas for their story, King Arthur may have made a comeback at the time. I mean, like Sword in the Stone was a Disney film from, well, 1949. Hell, 1963. Sword in the Stone came out. Um, so I mean, how often was that re-released? Because that releases. So Sword in the Stone was released again in 1972, then again in 1983, released on VHS 89, laser again in 91. I'm just curious. I'm seeing if I can connect some dots here. Yeah, see, I don't know. It's like she doesn't say anything about her relatives line, which was wardrobe, little white house. That's most. See, I'm just curious if subconsciously you have things like, um, 1995 is when she finished her manuscript. Well, guess what also happened? Very 1983 was the final release to theaters of Disney Sword in the Stone. So a couple years later, her writing the final manuscript for Harry Potter. I don't know. Seems like something that could be connected. I mean, as I said, you have a lot of people who somehow are inspired and not knowingly. I mean, boy wizard. I mean, you had a wizard. Like, hey, she makes reference to Merlin in her books. So, I mean, I know Merlin is a pretty famous wizard, but I'm just saying, it's like you never know. I mean, people are inspired. There are usually things that trigger inspiration, and like a movie coming out, you might not think about it, but it could. You may have gone to go see a movie with your kids, and after watching that movie, you've been like, just in the back of your head, it's like, like I wonder how I could expand upon this mythos. What about Merlin learning to be a magician? Like, how did he learn to become a wizard? What if he went to school to become a wizard? Just saying. I mean, it's one of these things where you things influence you on why you create the stories you do. And uh, I'm not saying that's what I'm not saying that's how she came up with the idea for Harry Potter. I'm just saying you had a lot of boy wizard books and books, comics, stories come out all around the same time, and it could easily be that something as simple as Disney's Sword in the Stone could have influenced these people into creating their stories. But that's just a guess. I mean, I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it's possible this could have been the reason. I'm going to flip this. But this is why I'm such a I make a make a big deal about things influencing us and how we create our stories because things have an impact. Uh, a friend of mine was he knew how other media really influences you when you create. And because of this, he actually refused to read Lord of the Rings because he was himself writing a fantasy novel. He was inspired by, not sure what he was inspired by, but he was afraid of accidentally um, copying some stuff, like reading Lord of the Rings or reading something else. I mean, he refrained from. I mean, I always thought this was. I personally did not agree with this idea of not consuming other media within the same genre. I feel that if I'm going to be creating something within this genre, that it makes sense to see what other people are doing. Because you never know. You might see something and be like, wow, that was a great idea. I never thought of that. I want to do something similar. And then you do your own take on it. It never has to be, it doesn't have to be a copy. It can just be a take on it. And so I was in the other boat. I thought seeing what other people did was a good idea. He did not. So he avoided so much because he was afraid of accidentally utilizing someone else's idea. So I mean, as I said, he knew that it happens, and that's why I said things trigger people. They get inspiration from different areas, and all depend. What the heck happened here? Happened there too. What the heck? I am at least very cautious on what I'm getting my inspiration from because I'm more afraid of having something inspire me that doesn't fit into the timeline. We got this big open area. We really have nothing going on in here. So let's create something. We'll build something with this first. You know what? Let's close you down for a second. Yeah, see, we completely forgot we were grabbing stuff like this. So let's copy this. I want to go back here for a second and. Oh, am I crashing it? No, I didn't. Okay. Woo-hoo. So I'm going to take you. I can delete you. redesign this here. Yeah, so erase you out. I have no collision on that. So I can erase these guys. Actually, no, I'm going to leave that the way it is. What was I talking about? I'm forgetting now. Ha ha ha. Let's see. Yeah, let's see if this is even possible. Part of me thinks this is definitely not possible. Let's grab our hero, wherever the heck she is. She is up here, right? There we go. You're way down. Let's see, because this was definitely a different area. Ooh, I don't like that. Where's this shooting? I'll mute him. Definitely don't like the fact that he's firing when he's so far away. Just muted you. Oh. That's what I want. Okay, there we go. That should be quiet now. Yes, I can't do this. I need to hop on here. Yeah, that is definitely not doing anything. So I could do something. Why do I do this to me, Serve? Oh, let's see. Be nice if I left that turned on. Ooh, I can't even jump over. That's good. Really relying on this moving platform then. Am I gonna have to? Yeah, I get it. First off, let's fix you. Should get all this stuff cleaned out. Save all. Okay, so save all. Let's see what we can get up here now. Ooh, we made it. And we can make it over here too. Make sure we can get back up. Ooh, okay. So, no. Okay, that's up too high then. We actually do something like this though. No, so okay, hit that. No, okay, so we can't. Good thing we're testing. Okay, let's just test this out again. Okay, that all seems to work fine. Okay, now we can get up there. Okay, that looks good now. Oh, I dang nabbit. So I fixed that area, but I didn't even test the section we were just working on. I need to do something there to prevent you from just sliding down. I thought it was something cool for this one. Okay. Man, that's cool. No, not gonna do that. So let's see. Get up there. There. So we gotta do something in that area now. Okay, so we got that. We got an area in here now that we can do some fun stuff. Place that cap. Forgot about this already. Da, da, da. There we go. Dow, dow, dow. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Probably like a little moving platform up there. One there, one there. So object. Let's get a moving platform. Drop. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Now, one thing I actually recently figured out, recently noticed was the spacing on these things. The further apart they are, the faster they move. So I actually need to go in at some point and actually recode these so that um, they move at the correct speed or a universal speed, because I can't have them like we had issues with some of these things where like they go like Mach 5 pretty much, and these launch you, and can't have that. So something, another fun thing that I need to go in and fix. It's a never-ending battle, but it's a fun one. I'll tell you that. Oops. Shadow thing there we had to fix. Erase. You're now good to go. A couple pieces that didn't fixed. Oh, we are so close. Oh wait, we still got that. Oh man. Holy crap. We might not finish tonight. Oh crikey, geez, I didn't think we had this much left to go. Well, we'll see where we are in another hour. If we're not far enough along, we may just say, I'll do that in off hours. Fine. Do, 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 do. Oh, that's why. I don't have the correct thing here anymore. Oh, that's weird. Question: will it fit? Does just barely. Question is, will you fit? Just want to test out this whole entire thing. Of course, these are not set to the right section. Didn't think that was gonna be an issue, but better this tested and better safe than sorry. Just make sure that it works. What's up with that too? Okay, good. I fit right through. Wow. So things. This is not right. Another one I saw that was weird. There we go. now we can go in. Just for fun. Do, 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 do. What I'm gonna do is instead of having to do a lot of heavy lifting on the other side. Uh-oh. Okay. Almost time. I have to shut it down. I figured this thing was a little big. Let's see. Well, first I gotta close this thing out. Save selected. Ugh. That's weird. But no, pretty sure NES games had glitches like that. So Wrong one. I want the white one. Make sure I can get in and out of this one. Okay, so that worked. Wow, look how much that has evolved. That is crazy how much this has changed. Ugh. Oh, I know it's one thing we completely stopped doing. Yeah, that looks nice. As always, things start to get quiet near the end of the show. Oh boy. We're going to have to figure out something to do in this area. This area is pretty big for having so little to be done. So There we go. Yeah, looks good. Now the question, what do we do for this area? I don't even know if this is gonna be feasible. Jeez. Oh yeah, it'd be nice if I actually put something in there that I can actually climb on. Oh my goodness. Even that area needs work still. Okay, it's different. Oh, okay. Well, still got some empty areas here. Yeah, we got that whole section over there. Oh, okay. Well, getting on to 1:30, I need to call it a night. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to wrap this up. Probably, maybe tomorrow. I don't know, maybe I'll do a extra broadcast. Who knows? Oh, let's switch over to full screen. There we go. So, did not finish like I was hoping to do. Um, Still got to work a little bit in this area and do something in here. Maybe find some way to move, slow this down by having it go here. Maybe go in, you drop down, go up, go there. I don't know, something like that. Still got this big area here that's not really doing anything. So maybe put something in there too. And we have this whole area still, sadly. So, I mean, I was hoping to have it done tonight, but it looks like it had its own plans. But hey, this is looking freaking slick. It is wicked busy. A lot more so than some of these other areas, which I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind getting more complicated as it goes on. I think it helps add to it. I mean, this one actually utilizes a lot of hidden stuff, but it is getting close to 1:30 in the morning, so I need to definitely call it a night. I am starting to crash. Energy drinks only keep me awake for so long in the middle of the night. On top of that, I've got busy stuff to do first thing in the morning. So I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm gonna probably put in some extra time tomorrow evening, just to try to wrap this up. We'll see. I'm hoping I can wrap this area up tomorrow evening. May or may not do an extra broadcast. If I do, I'll tweet it out. Otherwise, you get to see the finished product later on. So anyway, thank you guys all so much for hanging out with me tonight. It's been great. Making good progress. So, but yeah, next week we are going to go jump into 3D, and I'm going to get both Blender and Lightwave installed on my computer, and I'll give Blender a shot, see how it feels, see what I think. If if it's too much of a learning curve for me, I'll jump right back into Lightwave, because that's where I've learned everything, and I'm very familiar with the interface and how things work. One thing I was debating if I was going to do this or not, and I've decided against it since I do own a recent version of Lightwave and Blender is up to date. I was thinking, hey, maybe I should use the old software to develop everything, but yeah, I'm not going to do that. That would be just a little too much. So, anyway, that is it for me tonight. Thank you guys all for hanging out, and I'll see you guys next week here at Metroid Studios. Take care.